The blood looked purple under Crotto's 7 twin sons. David Reed knelt beside the creature bleeding out in the maintenance corridor, his hands shaking as he pressed gauze against the gaping wound. Nobody told him the job would involve stepping over dying aliens on his way to fix air recyclers. 3 weeks ago, he needed work. The Galactic Entertainment Consortium paid well for human technicians willing to relocate to remote stations. David signed the contract without reading the fine print. He needed the credits. His daughter's medical bills back on Earth weren't going to pay themselves. Now he understood why the pay was so high. Crotto's 7 wasn't a normal facility. It was a slaughterhouse wrapped in entertainment packaging. The creature under his hands looked like a panther from Earth, but larger, much larger. Its fur absorbed light like a black hole, and retractable claws the size of combat knives scraped weakly against the metal floor. The thing had 3 eyes, all of them dimming as blood pooled beneath its body. A neural collar blinked red around its thick neck. David had watched the fight on the monitors while replacing a coolant valve. This panther creature, called Night by the arena announcers, had faced 3 wolf-like predators in the Western Combat Zone. The wolves worked as a pack, coordinated and vicious. Night killed 2 of them but took severe damage in the process. The 3rd wolf escaped. The cameras loved it. 14 billion viewers across 70 star systems tuned in to watch. Night's breathing came in wet gasps. The creature tried to bite David's arm, but the neural collar activated. A sharp pulse of electricity made Night's muscles seize. The collar prevented attacks on staff members. It also forced aggression toward other predators. The consortium's programming made sure the fights never stopped. "Easy," David whispered. He had no idea if the creature understood him. "I'm trying to help." Night's center eye focused on him. Intelligence burned there, not animal instinct. Recognition, confusion. Why would prey help a predator? David worked fast. The wound needed serious medical attention, not field dressing in a dirty hallway. But the arena protocol was clear. Injured predators either recovered on their own or died for the cameras. Medical intervention reduced the drama. The consortium wanted nature to take its course, even if nature needed help from starvation, exhaustion, and forced combat. The maintenance tunnels ran beneath the entire arena complex. David had spent 2 weeks learning the layout, mapping every passage and abandoned section. The old mining facility that preceded the arena left behind kilometers of unused space. Most of it sat dark and forgotten, too expensive to seal properly. He made a decision that would change everything. "Can you move?" David asked. Knight's ear flicked. Maybe the translator implant in David's skull worked both ways. "I have a place safe, no cameras." Getting a 200-kilogram predator down 3 levels of service ladders tested every muscle David owned. Knight tried to help but kept fading in and out of consciousness. Twice, David nearly dropped them both down an elevator shaft. The neural collar sparked warnings, confused by the lack of combat context. The old mining section smelled like rust and stale air. Emergency lighting strips provided bare illumination. David had already moved some supplies here, planning to set up a private workspace away from his annoying supervisor. Now it would serve a different purpose. He laid Night on a pile of thermal blankets and broke open the medical kit he'd stolen from the staff clinic. The supplies were meant for humans, but blood was blood. Coagulation foam, synthetic skin patches, and broad-spectrum antibiotics worked across most carbon-based species. Night watched him with all 3 eyes. The creature's breathing steadied as David sealed the worst wounds. When he offered water, Night lapped it cautiously, waiting for poison or tricks. None came, just water, just help. "They took you from somewhere, didn't they?" David asked, sitting back against the wall. Exhaustion hit him like a physical weight. "You're not just an animal, you understand me." Night's tail twitched. A low rumble came from deep in the creature's chest. Not a growl, something else. David's translator caught fragments. Home, pack, stolen, cubs. "I'm sorry," David said. He meant it. They sat in silence for a long time. Above them, the arena continued its endless cycle of violence. Crowds cheered. Announcers hyped the next match. Credits exchanged hands as gamblers bet on which predator would survive the day. Down in the dark, a human and a monster made an unspoken agreement. David couldn't stop the fights. He couldn't shut down the arena or free the prisoners. He was just a maintenance technician with no power and fewer options. But he could do this. He could offer a safe place to rest, clean water, medical care, dignity. Knight's wounds would take weeks to heal properly. David would need to sneak food and supplies without getting caught. The consortium monitored everything, but the old mining tunnels had dead zones where sensors failed. He could work with that. As Knight finally slept, David looked at his hands. Purple blood stained his fingers. He'd crossed a line today, helped a creature that could tear him apart without effort, a creature bred and trained to kill for entertainment. He thought about his daughter, sick and alone on Earth. He thought about the contracts he'd signed, the life he'd planned. Then he thought about Knight's eyes, the intelligence there, the pain, the hope. Some things mattered more than plans. David stood and began organizing the space properly. If he was going to run an illegal sanctuary beneath a blood sport arena, he needed to do it right. Medical supplies, food storage, water purification, maybe a way to disable those neural collars. One predator saved, thousands more suffering above. It was a start. Frost arrived on the fourth day, dragging a leg that bent wrong. The wolf-like creature collapsed at the entrance to the mining tunnel, leaving a trail of blue blood across the floor. David found him while carrying stolen food rations to Knight's recovery area. The creature's silver fur was matted with dried blood and arena dirt. One eye was missing, the socket crudely scarred over. Burns covered the left side of his body where plasma fire had cooked the flesh. The neural collar around his neck sparked and stuttered, damaged during whatever fight had broken him. David knelt slowly. Frost's remaining eye tracked him with predator focus. The wolf's lips pulled back, revealing teeth designed to tear through armor plating. A warning, stay back or die. Knight sent you, didn't she? David asked. He kept his voice calm and low. Frost's ear twitched. The growl faded to a whimper. The wolf tried to stand, but the broken leg wouldn't support weight. Pride warred with pain across the creature's face. David recognized that look. He'd worn it himself plenty of times. Getting Frost into the sanctuary took an hour. The wolf outweighed David by 40 kilograms and trusted him about as much as a bomb. Every movement brought snarls and snapping teeth. The neural collar kept misfiring, sending random shocks through Frost's nervous system. By the time they reached the main chamber, both of them were exhausted. Knight raised her head from the blankets. Her wounds had closed nicely over the past few days. She made a sound like wind through trees. Frost responded with a series of barks and growls. David's translator caught pieces of the conversation. Safe here, human helps, no tricks, rest. Frost's body relaxed slightly. If Knight trusted the human, maybe survival was possible. David set to work on the broken leg while Knight watched. The fracture was clean but severe. He splinted it with metal rods and wrapped it tight. Frost bore the pain in silence, though his claws gouged deep marks in the floor. "You're going to need time," David said, applying the last of his antibiotic supplies. "No fighting for at least 6 weeks." Frost's laugh came out as a harsh bark. 6 weeks. The arena would force him into combat tomorrow if he could stand. Rest was a luxury that didn't exist above ground. "You're staying here," David said firmly. "Both of you, I'll figure out the details." The details proved complicated. 2 large predators needed significant food. David's salary covered his own meals with little extra. He started skipping lunch, redirecting those rations to the sanctuary. He told himself it was temporary, just until he found a better solution. Word spread faster than David expected. Predators had their own communication networks, invisible to human overseers. Within 2 weeks, others began appearing at the tunnel entrance. A Wolverine-type creature named Ripper, small but terrifying, covered in scars from hundreds of fights. A honey badger species called Scar who refused to make any sound but communicated through body language. 3 more wolves from Frost's original pack, survivors of the same matches that had taken his eye. David's small sanctuary became crowded. The old mining section had space but lacked basic necessities. He worked double shifts, stealing moments to expand the facility. Sleeping 4 hours a night, he installed water lines tapped from the main facility. He rerouted power from unused circuits. He built barriers to separate species that didn't get along. The predators watched him work with confusion. Why would something so weak and breakable exhaust itself for creatures bred to kill? David didn't have a good answer. He just couldn't watch them suffer. Night became his unofficial translator. Her species had natural linguistic abilities, and she picked up human speech faster than the others. She explained concepts that seemed alien to arena predators: safety, choice, fairness. The wolves struggled with pack hierarchy that wasn't based on violence. Ripper couldn't understand why David didn't claim dominance through combat. Because that's not how it works, David tried to explain one evening while treating Ripper's infected shoulder. Strength isn't just about fighting, it's about taking care of each other. Ripper's laugh sounded like grinding metal. The Wolverine had been bred in arena laboratories, genetics twisted to maximize aggression. He'd never known anything but violence. The idea that power could come from compassion seemed like weakness. But Ripper kept coming back, kept accepting treatment, kept sleeping near David's workspace. The sanctuary developed routines. David brought food before his shift and after. Night organized a watch system, making sure no consortium staff accidentally discovered them. Frost taught the younger wolves to move silently through the tunnels. Even Scar contributed, using his natural digging abilities to expand the chamber system. David installed puzzle feeders made from spare parts, giving the predators mental stimulation beyond combat. He created sleeping areas suited to each species. He learned their stories through Night's translation. Every creature here had been stolen from their homeworld, ripped from families, forced to kill for entertainment. "How many fights have you survived?" David asked Night one evening. She thought for a long moment. 43 matches. I stopped counting after I killed my sister." David's hands froze on the medical scanner. "They made you fight family." The viewers enjoyed it. Sibling versus sibling. High drama, good ratings. Night's voice carried no emotion. She'd learned to bury feelings to survive. David felt sick. He'd known the arena was brutal, but the calculated cruelty went deeper than he'd imagined. These weren't just death matches. They were psychological torture wrapped in entertainment. By the end of the first month, 12 predators called the sanctuary home. David had lost 8 kilograms and slept in the tunnels more often than his assigned quarters. His supervisor complained about decreased efficiency, but David's work remained adequate enough to avoid termination. The predators changed in subtle ways. Frost's pack stopped fighting over food hierarchy. Night began grooming the younger panthers, teaching them stealth techniques. Ripper's constant aggression faded to watchful alertness. Scar started making quiet, rumbling sounds that might have been contentment. They were becoming more than weapons, more than entertainment. They were becoming people again. David fell asleep one night surrounded by predators who could kill him in seconds. Frost's pack curled nearby, their breathing synchronized in sleep. Night kept watch by the entrance, her 3 eyes reflecting emergency lighting. Ripper and Scar sprawled across the coolest section of floor. For the first time in weeks, David dreamed of something other than blood and violence. He dreamed of his daughter, healthy and laughing. He dreamed of home. Above them, the arena prepared for tomorrow's matches. Betting opened. Cameras positioned for optimal angles. The entertainment machine ground forward, hungry for violence. Below ground, monsters rested in peace, and one human proved that kindness wasn't weakness. The data analyst noticed the pattern during a routine quarterly review. Predator mortality rates had dropped by 18% over the past 2 months. Survival times between matches increased. Injury recovery showed unexpected improvement. The numbers didn't match arena standards. David didn't know about the investigation yet. He was too busy teaching Ripper how to play a strategy game using colored stones and a grid scratched into the floor. The Wolverine's natural aggression made him terrible at planning ahead, but he was learning. Slowly. "You're thinking 3 moves ahead now?" David said, moving his stone. "That's progress." Ripper growled and flipped the board. David laughed. 2 months ago, that response would have come with claws and teeth. Now it was just frustration, real emotions instead of programmed violence. Night padded into the chamber, her movement fluid and silent. "The young ones are asking questions again." 3 juvenile panthers had arrived last week, barely old enough to hunt. The consortium started them young, breaking spirits before they fully formed. The youngsters couldn't understand basic concepts like sharing food or sleeping without guards. "What kind of questions?" David asked. "They want to know why you help us. They think you want something. Payment, service, loyalty enforced by fear." Knight's tail swished. "They don't understand kindness without strings." David stood and stretched his back. Sleeping on rock floors was destroying his spine. Show them there are no strings, let them choose to trust or not. The sanctuary had grown beyond David's ability to manage alone. 23 predators now called the tunnels home. Food became a serious problem. Medical supplies ran dangerously low. David stole what he could, but the facility's inventory system tracked everything. Suspicion was building. Frost organized the wolves into hunting parties, not for killing, but for gathering. They raided the arena's waste disposal, recovering discarded food before it reached the incinerators. Scar's digging skills expanded the sanctuary into 3 new chambers. The predators were contributing, building something together. David started teaching them about their own biology. Knight translated while he explained wound treatment, nutrition needs, and basic medical care. The predators could help each other when David wasn't available. Knowledge became a shared resource. "My species uses pack bonds to heal faster," Frost said one evening. "When we're together, separated from violence, our bodies recover like they're supposed to. The arena keeps us isolated, keeps us weak." "Everything here is designed to maximize suffering," Knight added. "The neural collars suppress our natural behaviors, force aggression we don't feel. We're not naturally this violent." David had suspected but never confirmed it. The consortium didn't just capture predators. They reprogrammed them, turned complex beings into simple killing machines for viewer entertainment. He started documenting everything. Species names, homeworlds, capture circumstances, stories of families and lives before the arena, evidence that these creatures were people, not props. He didn't know what he'd do with the information, but it felt important to record. The 3 juvenile panthers slowly integrated into sanctuary life. The smallest one, who David called Whisper for her quiet movements, attached herself to Night. She followed the older panther everywhere, learning stealth and hunting techniques. Not for violence, but for survival, for choice. Ripper surprised everyone by showing patience with the youngsters. The Wolverine's aggressive exterior hid something softer. He taught them how to fight defensively, how to protect without killing. Skills the arena never valued. "I had cubs once," Ripper admitted to David during a late-night conversation. "Before they took me, 3 of them, I wonder if they remember me." David had no answer that would help. He just sat with Ripper in companionable silence. The investigation tightened like a noose. David's supervisor started asking pointed questions about his schedule. Security reviewed footage of maintenance tunnels. The consortium employed hundreds of staff, but David spent more time in the lower levels than anyone else. He knew discovery was coming, just not when. The youngsters asked him one evening why he looked worried. David tried to hide it, but predator senses caught everything. Elevated heart rate, stress hormones, fear. "They're going to find this place," David said honestly. "I don't know when, but soon. You should prepare." Night translated for the group. Silence fell across the sanctuary, 23 predators all looking at one human who'd given them something impossible. Safety, dignity, choice. "Then we fight," Frost said simply. No, David's voice came out harder than intended. That's exactly what they want. Proof you're just violent animals. You fight, they justify everything. The arena, the collars, all of it. So we run, Ripper's claws scraped stone. Hide deeper. We show them what you've become, David said. Not weapons, not monsters, people who choose peace when given the option. That's more dangerous to them than any amount of violence. The predators didn't fully understand. Peace as a weapon seemed backwards, but they trusted the human who'd never lied to them, who'd exhausted himself keeping them safe, who'd asked nothing in return. David spent the next 3 days teaching them to control their responses, how to show intelligence without aggression, how to demonstrate choice. It went against every survival instinct the arena had programmed into them. Whisper asked the question they all wondered. What happens to you when they find out? Probably get arrested, David said calmly. Sabotage, theft, breaking about 40 different consortium regulations. I knew the risks when I started. Why, Ripper demanded, why risk everything for us? David looked around the chamber, at the wolves sleeping in peaceful packs, at night grooming the youngsters, at Scar digging new tunnels with purpose instead of desperation, at Ripper who'd learned to play games instead of just killing. Because you deserved better, David said, and someone had to try. The security breach came 2 days later. David was replacing bandages on Frost's leg when alarms echoed through the tunnels. Consortium security forces, 12 of them armed and armored. They'd tracked power consumption to the old mining section. The predators tensed, neural collars activated trying to force aggression, but David had spent weeks teaching them to resist, to choose. Remember what we talked about, David said calmly. Show them who you really are. The security team burst into the main chamber expecting monsters. Instead, they found a community. Predators sitting calmly despite active neural collars, a human treating wounds with gentle hands, evidence of cooperation, learning, and peace. The team leader's weapon lowered slightly. What is this? A sanctuary, David said, a place where they can choose not to kill. One security officer noticed the juvenile panthers huddled behind Knight. Another saw the strategy game still set up in the corner. A third observed Frost's splinted leg and the careful medical care. These weren't arena beasts, these were people, and the human had proved it. The security team's weapons stayed pointed at the predators, but uncertainty flickered across human faces. This wasn't what the briefing had prepared them for. The lead officer, a woman named Tors, tapped her communicator. Command, we have a situation, requesting immediate supervisor presence. Multiple high-value assets in unauthorized location with maintenance technician Reed. Assets appear, compromised. David stood slowly, hands visible. 23 predators surrounded him in various states of rest and healing. Their neural collars sparked and buzzed, trying to force attack protocols. The creatures trembled with the effort of resistance, but they held their ground. Peaceful, controlled. They're not compromised, David said. They're finally acting like themselves instead of your programmed killers. Tor's jaw tightened. You've stolen consortium property, modified neural collars, diverted resources. That's 15 years minimum in a labor facility. Property, Knight's voice cut through the tension. Her human speech was accented but clear. We're called property, things, assets, never people. The security team flinched. One officer's weapon dipped. Assets didn't speak. They roared and killed and died for the cameras. They didn't use words like people. Frost limped forward on his healing leg. We choose this. Choose the human who gave us dignity. No force, no tricks, just choice. More footsteps echoed in the tunnel. Director Valdez arrived with a camera crew and 3 corporate lawyers. The consortium's top administrator on Kratos 7 took in the scene with cold calculation. David recognized that look. Valdez was already calculating profit and loss, risk and reward. Broadcast this, Valdez ordered the camera crew. Sir, protocol says, Tors began. I know what protocol says. Broadcast it anyway. Wide feed. All subscribers. Valdez's smile didn't reach his eyes. The galaxy needs to see what our maintenance technician has been doing. The camera drones activated, streaming live to 14 billion viewers across 70 star systems. David's heart sank. Valdez wasn't stupid. This was damage control. Show the predators as compromised, dangerous even when docile. Justify harsher controls. But something unexpected happened. The camera caught Whisper hiding behind Night, young and frightened but controlled. It captured Ripper sitting calmly despite the Wolverine's natural aggression, showing more discipline than most trained soldiers. It showed Frost's pack arranged protectively but peacefully around David. It showed Scar using sign language to communicate with the wolves. It showed intelligence, community, choice. The arena's viewing numbers exploded. 20 billion, 30 billion, 50. People across the galaxy watched predators demonstrate behavior that should be impossible. The comment feeds lit up with confusion and anger. Why are they caged if they can do this? These are people. We've been watching people die. This is wrong. This has always been wrong. Valdez's expression shifted. The corporate smile faded. This wasn't the response he'd anticipated. Public opinion was turning against the arena itself, not the predators. Terminate them all, Valdez said quietly to Tors. Compromised assets have no value. Put Reed in restraints. The security team hesitated. 50 billion viewers watched. Every weapon movement would be recorded. Every death would be broadcast. The consortium had always operated with public approval. Entertainment was only profitable if people wanted to watch. No, Tors lowered her weapon completely. I'm not executing thinking beings on live feed for corporate profit. 2 other officers followed her lead, then another. The rest remained uncertain, weapons half raised. David saw his opening. You can kill us or you can profit from this. Your choice, Director. Valdez's eyes narrowed. Explain quickly. The arena is dying, David said. People are already uncomfortable with blood sport. This proves the predators are more than animals. Kill them, you prove you knew all along, that you've been forcing intelligent beings to murder each other for money. Kill them and the lawsuits start, the investigations, the boycotts. Frost picked up the thread. But give us choice, you change the story. Rehabilitation, redemption, turn killers into community. People love that story. Knight added, we'll fight if we choose to. Demonstrate skills for education, not death. Show what we can become instead of what you forced us to be. That's worth watching. The galaxy was listening. The comment feeds showed it. People wanted to see transformation, not more violence. They wanted to believe the predators could become something else. Valdez was silent for a long moment. Behind him, the lawyers frantically calculated legal exposure. The camera drones captured everything. 50 billion viewers waited. The sanctuary becomes official, Valdez finally said. A rehabilitation and education facility. Reed runs it with full medical and resource support. Predators choose whether they fight or retire. Those who fight do so with consent and full medical care. No more forced combat. And the neural collars, David demanded. Modified, prevent harm to staff but no forced aggression. The predators control their own actions. Valdez looked at the cameras. The consortium is committed to ethical treatment of all intelligent species. This facility will become a model for arena reform across the galaxy. It was a lie wrapped in truth. Valdez didn't care about ethics, but public pressure and legal liability forced his hand. Sometimes doing the right thing happened for the wrong reasons. The security team stood down. The predators remained calm, proving they could choose peace even when threatened. David felt exhaustion crash over him like a wave. They'd won. Somehow, impossibly, they'd won. But the victory came with conditions. The sanctuary would be watched, monitored. Any violence, any loss of control, and the compromise would end. The predators would need to prove every day that they deserved better treatment. Knight approached David as the security team withdrew. You risked everything. So did you, David replied. You could have fought, could have killed them all. You chose not to. Because you taught us we could choose, Frost said. That choice mattered more than instinct. Ripper snorted. Still want to fight sometimes, but not because I have to, because I choose to, that's different. The galaxy watched as the first Predator sanctuary became official. Watched as monsters lined up not to kill, but to learn they could be more. The broadcast continued for hours, showing the facilities David had built, the medical care, the enrichment activities, the community. Public opinion shifted like a landslide. Other arenas faced immediate pressure to reform. Stock prices fell. Protests erupted on 100 worlds. The entertainment industry built on blood sport began to crumble. David sat in the sanctuary that night, surrounded by predators who'd become friends. His daughter's medical bills would be paid. The consortium had been forced to honor his contract with bonuses for silence about certain legal irregularities. But more importantly, 23 beings who'd been treated as things now had dignity. Choice, a future beyond violence. Whisper curled up against David's side, purring like distant thunder. Frost's pack sprawled across the chamber in peaceful rest. Night watched the entrance with calm alertness instead of programmed paranoia. One human had proved compassion was stronger than cruelty. That seeing people as people, regardless of teeth and claws, changed everything. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, but learning. And monsters lined up to enter a place where they could finally be more than monsters. 6 months after the broadcast, the sanctuary had transformed from hidden refuge to legitimate facility. David stood in the new medical center, watching as human doctors worked alongside predators to treat incoming refugees. The change still felt surreal. Night had become his unofficial second-in-command. Her natural leadership and language skills made her perfect for coordinating between species. She wore a modified collar now, silver instead of the old black. It monitored health rather than enforced behavior. All the predators had made the switch, though some took longer to trust the new technology. 3 more transports arriving today, Night reported, her 3 eyes scanning a data pad. 2 from Arena Station 12, 1 from the fighting pits on Doral 6. Total of 47 predators requesting sanctuary. The numbers kept growing. Other arenas, pressured by public outcry and legal challenges, were shutting down or reforming. The predators had nowhere to go. Most had been stolen as cubs, raised in captivity, genetically modified for aggression. They couldn't return to homeworlds they'd never known. So they came to Kratos 7, to the place where a human had proved they were more than weapons. Frost ran the integration program now. His pack had grown to 15 wolves, all former arena fighters learning to live without violence. He taught newcomers pack dynamics based on cooperation instead of dominance, how to hunt for food rather than sport, how to contribute to a community. The hardest part is trust, Frost explained to a group of new arrivals. You've been hurt, betrayed, forced to kill. Your instinct says attack first, survive second. But here we choose different instincts. The newcomers struggled. A panther named Shadow attacked another predator over food. It took Frost, Night, and Ripper working together to separate them without serious injury. Shadow spent a week in isolated recovery, not as punishment, but to heal the psychological wounds that caused the outbreak. David visited Shadow every day, talked to him, explained choice and consequence. The panther didn't understand at first. In the arena, violence brought food and survival. Here, violence brought isolation and shame. The cause and effect was backwards. You're not being punished, David said on the 5th day. You're being protected from yourself and others until you're ready to choose peace. Shadow's middle eye focused on David. Why do you care? I'm a killer, bred for it, shaped for it. I'll always be a killer. You're a person who was forced to kill, David corrected. That's different. What you were forced to do doesn't define what you can become. It took 3 more days, but Shadow eventually rejoined the community. Cautiously, with setbacks, but trying, that's all David asked, that they try. The sanctuary expanded into the old arena facilities. What once housed weapons and bedding systems now contained gardens growing plants from 100 homeworlds. Psychological counseling centers staffed by specialists who understood trauma. Training facilities where predators learned skills beyond fighting. Ripper discovered he enjoyed teaching. The Wolverine ran defensive combat classes, showing former arena fighters how to protect without killing, how to disable threats rather than destroy them. His students learned that strength could preserve life instead of end it. "I'm not teaching them to be weak," Ripper growled when a visiting journalist questioned his methods. "I'm teaching them to be strong enough to show mercy. That's harder than killing. Takes more control, more discipline, more actual strength." The journalist's article went viral. Billions read about predators learning mercy from another predator. The image of Ripper, scarred and vicious-looking, gently correcting a young predator's defensive stance became iconic. Proof that change was possible. Scar's digging projects transformed the underground into a vast network of specialized habitats. Each species got environments suited to their needs. The panthers had shadowy hunting grounds. The wolves got open spaces for running. The wolverines and honey badger species got rocky terrain for climbing and burrowing. Scar himself rarely appeared above ground, but his work supported everyone. Human staff arrived to help. Doctors, therapists, engineers, teachers. Most came because they'd seen the original broadcast. They wanted to be part of something that proved intelligence agencies and compassion could coexist. Some came to study. Others came to heal their own wounds by helping others. David trained them all in one critical rule: respect first, always. The predators weren't patients or subjects or assets. They were people recovering from trauma, rebuilding lives, learning to trust again. Treat them as anything less, and you're gone. Whisper grew into a capable young panther under Knight's guidance. She'd never fight in an arena, never know that life. Instead, she learned to track without hunting, to move silently through diplomatic situations, to translate between species. She became Knight's apprentice in leadership, showing what the next generation could be. The three juvenile panthers from those early days all chose different paths. One joined Frost's integration program. Another worked in the medical center. Whisper focused on diplomacy. All three proved that starting young made a difference. They had no arena habits to unlearn, only positive skills to build. Former arena fighters began leaving the sanctuary, not fleeing but graduating. Frost's pack established a settlement on Kratos' 7 southern continent, hunting indigenous prey and building homes. They sent regular updates and invited David to visit, a community of former killers choosing peace. Knight received an offer from the Galactic Council. They wanted her to testify about arena conditions and predator rights. She accepted, bringing David and 3 other predators as witnesses. Their testimony led to the Arena Abolition Act, shutting down blood sport facilities across 70 systems. But success brought new problems. Not all predators could adapt. Some were too damaged, too changed by genetic modification and psychological trauma. They remained violent despite treatment, unable to choose peace even when given every opportunity. David built a separate facility for them. Not a prison, but a specialized care center. Heavy monitoring, limited contact, but still dignity. Still choice within their capabilities. Still people, even if they couldn't live in general population. It hurt. Every predator who couldn't heal felt like a personal failure. Knight found David in the medical center one night, staring at reports on a wolverine who'd attacked 3 others in a week. "You can't save everyone," Knight said gently. "I have to try," David replied. "You are trying. You built this place, changed the galaxy, gave thousands of us lives we never dreamed possible. But some wounds are too deep. Some changes are permanent. That's not your failure. That's what they did to us." David knew she was right, didn't make it easier. The sanctuary's success inspired others. Facilities opened on 12 worlds, all following David's model. Respect, choice, community. Former arena fighters found purpose in helping others heal. The movement grew beyond what one human and one panther could manage alone. On the anniversary of the original broadcast, David stood in the main plaza of what was now called the Sanctuary City. Thousands of predators lived here, worked here, built lives here. Gardens and homes and schools, art galleries displaying predator culture, restaurants serving food from 100 homeworlds. Knight stood beside him, now officially recognized as co-director. Frost led his pack in a ceremonial hunt demonstration, showing visitors how wolves work together without violence. Ripper taught a class on defensive tactics to young predators from newly shut. Down arenas, Whisper coordinated with galactic officials on refugee placement. "We did this," Knight said quietly. "We all did this," David corrected. "Every predator who chose peace, every human who saw people instead of monsters, every being who decided compassion mattered more than entertainment." A young panther approached, newly arrived from a closed arena. Scared, confused, aggressive, exactly like Knight had been a year ago. David knelt to the youngling's eye level. "Welcome to Sanctuary, you're safe here, no one will hurt you, no one will force you to fight, you get to choose who you become." The youngster's eyes widened. Choice, the most powerful word in any language, the foundation of everything they'd built. Monsters lined up to enter, not to kill, to become. The rescue ship arrived on a gray morning when Kratos' 7 twin sons hid behind ash clouds from a distant volcanic eruption. David watched it descend, a massive vessel capable of carrying thousands. The Galactic Rehabilitation Fleet had come to offer every predator transport to their homeworlds. The Arena Abolition Act had passed. Every blood sport facility in the galaxy was shutting down. The consortium had collapsed under legal pressure and public boycotts. Former arena predators could finally go home, back to the worlds they'd been stolen from as cubs. Knight stood beside David on the landing platform. Her 3 eyes tracked the ship with unreadable expression. Behind them, the entire sanctuary population had gathered. 2,000 predators, all waiting to hear the offer. Captain Andrews emerged from the ship, a human woman with kind eyes and military bearing. "We have the resources to return every being here to their homeworld. Full medical support, family reunification assistance, financial compensation. The council voted unanimous approval. You can finally go home." Silence fell across the platform. Wind whistled through the metal structures. David felt his heart tighten. This was right. This was what they deserved. But the thought of them leaving, of the sanctuary emptying, hurt more than he'd expected. "How long do we have to decide?" Knight asked. 2 weeks, Andrews replied. "We'll begin preparations immediately for those who choose to leave." The predators dispersed slowly, returning to their homes and workplaces. Conversations started quietly, then grew louder. Arguments erupted. Some predators couldn't remember their homeworlds, others had families they'd been torn from decades ago. Many had only known captivity and the sanctuary. David gave them space to decide. This had to be their choice without pressure or influence. Frost found him that evening in the old mining section where it all began. The wolf's silver fur had grayed slightly over the past year, but his one remaining eye still held sharp intelligence. "I should want to go home," Frost said without preamble. "My pack came from the northern forests of Canara 4. Cold, lots of prey, beautiful under the blue moon. I barely remember it, but I should want to return." David waited. Frost would get to his point. "But home isn't a place anymore," Frost continued. "It's the pack, the purpose, the choice. My pack is here. We've built something that matters, teaching others, helping them heal. That's home now." "You should still see your homeworld," David said. "Even if you don't stay, see where you came from. Remember who you were before the arena." Frost's ear flicked. "Will you come with us if we choose to visit but return?" David smiled. "If you want me there." Similar conversations happened across the sanctuary. Ripper admitted to Knight that he'd been laboratory-bred, genetically engineered for the arena. He had no homeworld to return to. The sanctuary was the only home he'd ever known. Whisper had never seen her homeworld. She'd been taken as an infant, raised in arena nurseries. The planet her species came from was just a name in a database. How could she long for something she'd never experienced? Scar finally spoke for the first time in David's presence. His voice was rough, unused to forming words. Home is where they see you, really see you, not what they made you, what you choose to be. The 2 weeks passed quickly. David helped those who chose to leave prepare for the journey. He provided medical records, behavioral assessments, recommendations for continued therapy. Each departure felt like losing family, but he hugged them and wished them well. A wolf pack from Frost's group chose to return to Canara 4. 3 panthers decided to find their families. A honey badger species discovered his birth clan still existed and wanted to reconnect. David celebrated with them, even as his heart ached. But the majority stayed. 2,000 predators became 1,500 became 1,000 as departures continued. Then the numbers stabilized. 1,000 beings who chose the sanctuary over their homeworlds. On the final day, Captain Andrews met with David and Knight in the administrative center. I expected more to leave, she admitted. We have space for thousands more. Why are they staying? Knight answered, because home isn't where you're from, it's where you're understood, where you matter, where you can choose who you become every day. These beings were stolen from their homeworlds as cubs. They don't remember those places as home. They remember trauma and loss. Here they remember healing. And you, Andrews asked David directly. You could leave too, return to Earth. Your daughter's medical bills are paid. You've done more than anyone could ask. Why stay? David looked out the window at the sanctuary city. Predators walked the streets in peace, working, living, building futures. Frost's integration program had a new class starting next week. Ripper was planning a defensive tactics tournament. Whisper was negotiating with the Galactic Council for formal diplomatic recognition. Because this is home too, David said simply. They needed someone to see them as people first. I can't unsee that now, can't walk away from what we've built together. Andrews nodded. The Council wants to make this the permanent rehabilitation center. Full funding, official status, protection under galactic law. They want you and Knight as co-directors. Interested? Knight and David exchanged looks. A year ago, she'd been a dying predator in a maintenance tunnel. He'd been a desperate technician trying to pay medical bills. Now they were being offered a chance to make their sanctuary permanent, protected, and official. Yes, they answered together. The ceremony happened a month later. The Galactic Council formally recognized Sanctuary City as an independent settlement under joint human-predator governance. David and Knight stood before representatives from 100 worlds, accepting the charter that protected every being in their care. Frost's pack performed a traditional hunt demonstration, showing how predators could work together without violence. Ripper gave a speech about transformation and choice that brought several council members to tears. Whisper presented a diplomatic proposal for predator rights across the galaxy, written with input from every species in the sanctuary. David's daughter attended via hologram from Earth, healthy and proud of her. Father, she'd grown 6 inches in the past year and wanted to study xenobiology. Maybe visit the sanctuary for her university research project. David cried, though he tried to hide it. That evening, David walked through the sanctuary alone. Gardens bloomed with plants from dozens of worlds. Homes stood in organized neighborhoods, each designed for different species' needs. Schools taught younglings of all species together. Medical centers healed physical and mental wounds. Art galleries displayed predator culture preserved and celebrated. Knight found him in the old mining section, now preserved as a memorial. The blankets where she'd first healed. The water line David had installed with shaking hands. The tunnel where Frost had collapsed, unable to continue. Do you regret it? Knight asked. You gave up your life on Earth for this. David shook his head. I found my life here, found purpose, found people worth caring about. He looked at Knight, his friend and partner in everything they'd built. You taught me that strength isn't about power, it's about choosing to care when caring is hard. You taught me that kindness isn't weakness, Knight replied. That asking for help isn't surrender, that choosing peace takes more courage than violence. They stood in silence, two beings from different worlds who'd found common ground in compassion. Outside, the sanctuary city lived and breathed. Former arena fighters became teachers, doctors, artists, leaders. They raised families in safety. They built futures in peace. They chose who they became every single day. Monsters had lined up to enter a place that promised nothing but the chance to be more than teeth and claws. A human had opened the door and said, "You are people, and people deserve dignity." The galaxy had watched, learned, changed. Somewhere across the stars, another arena was closing. Another group of predators was being freed. They would hear about Sanctuary City, about the human and the panther who proved transformation was possible. They would make the journey to Kratos 7, scared and damaged and desperate. And David would be there. Night would be there. Frost, Ripper, Whisper, Scar, and 1,000 others would be there. Ready to show them that home isn't where you're from. Home is where they see you, really see you, where you can choose to become something more. Where monsters become people, where people build something beautiful together. Where one human proved that compassion changes everything. The sanctuary's lights glowed against Kratos' 7 dark sky. Inside, former killers slept in peace, dreaming of tomorrows they never thought they'd see. And somewhere in the universe, another being in chains heard the